did a lot of essays on this kind of stuff, so it's interesting to me.
We all studied courses at the university and in Havana, and we were also kind of doing some research for dissertations and stuff.
We all found it to be a really crazy place, but really amazing at the same time. And I don't know, the university, it's not like university here. In some ways it's more laid back, more open. You get out of it what you put in, basically, but it's really good that education's free for everyone over there.
I think there's a lack of understanding over in the westernised world as to what's actually going on in Cuba. People know very little, especially, I mean, I went over there thinking that I knew a lot about Cuba, having studied it, and I got there and it's the complete opposite of what I kind of expected.
Because I kind of went there undecided about whether I thought the regime worked or not, and realistically I think I'm still kind of undecided, but I'm leaning towards it definitely, because some of the stuff I've seen, like just you know how everyone has a house, everyone has free healthcare, everyone who's our age gets access to university, so you actually get students who really want to study rather than kind of just doing it for financial gains or something like that.
Having written a number of books on the subject, and who is himself an elected municipal representative, Jesus Garcia.
In Cuba, we are developing a new society, a qualitatively different society from that society we had during these last centuries. Democracy is a word that is very much manipulated in the world. It's so manipulated that Cuba is the less democratic people in the world, and the United States is the example of democracy. And if we will continue working with this word, it will be very difficult to understand each other. And more than this, in reality, if we think really deeply about this concept, we could clearly understand that around the world democracy is some kind of myth, because in essence democracy is always one part of the society ruling over the other part. And the interest, the goal of our society as a process of socialist development is the self-government. It means nobody will rule others. We all will rule ourselves together. That is very complex. This is not easy in the practice, and it's not a thing that we could buy, made in the store. It's a thing that we should develop with a very hard work during a very long process. Even more harder if you have an enemy so powerful as the enemy we had during these last 50 years.
We welcome our Cuban comrades to Britain, a shocking state of affairs when we consider that Britain is the fourth richest nation in the world. A Britain where functional illiteracy is almost 20% amongst adults, so that 1 in 5 of the British population cannot adequately fill in a form, and then can we even talk about democracy in that situation? A Britain where the National Health Service is being carved up and privatised, where hospitals are being loaded with the cost of private sector borrowing. And by that we mean the private finance initiative, the hospitals that are being built and then owe huge amounts of money back to the private corporations that the NHS is loaning the buildings off. An example is in Coventry, where 2 hospitals could have been refurbished for £30 million, but they opted to build a new one for £174 million. And then, by now, 10 years later, that was in 1998, 10 years later, the cost was £410 million, meaning £56 million a year back. This is the crisis of capitalism and the craziness of the market. Britain, where the arms production is the largest part of British manufacture, and where the British government's Defence Science and Technology Laboratory now funds 60 universities in Britain. A Britain which spends more on research and development for the military than research and development for health. And a Britain where the division between rich and poor is getting bigger and bigger, where the working class bear the brunt of the crisis of capitalism and its need to search ever for more markets and plunder more places.
El tema concreto del pensamiento del Che en esencia.
In essence, Che Guevara's thoughts.
A ver si puedo estructurarlo brevemente.
Can be structured briefly.
El ser un hombre de ideas avanzadas.
He had very advanced ideas.
De gran cultura, desde niño.
Of a lot of culture right from childhood.
De gran sensibilidad humana.
He had a lot of human sensitivities.
Y en su estudio precisamente de todos los problemas históricos, de todas las personalidades y un poco de la filosofía y de la economía.
And in his studies about philosophy, economy, throughout his life,
Llegó a la conclusión
he reached the conclusion
de que el socialismo era la mejor opción para la humanidad.
that socialism was in fact the best option for humanity.
El otro principio
The other principle,
importante
which is important,
es el principio de utilizar el estímulo moral como problema fundamental y en segundo lugar el estímulo material.
and is this the moral stimulation against the material one?
Porque ¿para qué sirve una sociedad socialista
Because what do you want a socialist
donde
society for?
los trabajadores de una fábrica
When you have workers in a factory,
o los empleados de oficina de un ministerio
or the workers in an office in a ministry, for instance,
o de una institución pública,
or a public institution,
los empleados que van allí
with workers working there,
se llevan mal entre ellos,
if they can't really relate to each other,
se critican injustamente a espaldas uno del otro las cosas.
if they backstab each other,
Bueno, el Che eso no lo admitía.
and Che wouldn't tolerate that.
Y desarrolló en nosotros la educación, en todos nosotros,
And he developed a sort of education in all of us.
que lo primero que uno tiene que hacer si piensa mal de otra persona es hablar con esa persona.
And that the first thing that you had to do if you had
Compañero, es un
a
amigo,
problem with your
compañero de trabajo.
comrades was to talk to them.
What are Cuban dissidents? Do you know what are Cuban dissidents?
Severe political differences with the party line, the Cuban Communist Party line.
But I have political difference with the party line. I am not a Cuban dissident. I am not member of party. I am not a Cuban dissident. So what is Cuban dissident? Cuban dissident is a product of the information about Cuba.
They've got a lot more than us, like a lot more female MPs and representatives. Makes you feel like getting involved a lot more and quite, not anger but passionate about it, because you want to change things and you do want to have more active role. And let other people know as well. It's like hardly any of my friends know that, I don't think so.
I thought it was a great event. It was really very informative, and I mean it was really interesting to have three such outstanding comrades from Cuba here to speak, and such a wonderful turnout. I was very impressed.